Hello, welcome to the Linguist Library. Today, as you can see from the title of this video, we're talking about the authors who made me. This is actually a tag. It's called The Literary Pedigree, My Literary Pedigree, and it's a crossover from Booktube Italia, or Italia Booktube. I was tagged by the amazing Dave from Polyglot Reading. So Dave is probably a lost cousin of mine. I just discovered that he has a grandfather with the same name as me. So I have a Russian grandfather called Tolstoy. You may have heard of him. If we were to start from the beginning and we were to talk about authors who are family to me because they helped shape me and they helped me be who I am, really, I would have to start from the beginning with mother and father. And if you've been paying attention, you notice that my name on the channel is you notice that the handle of this channel is actually Emily Clarice Pessoa, and that's because of Clarice Lispector and Fernando Pessoa. So that's mom and dad for me. Clarice Lispector is an amazing modern writer from Brazil, probably one of the biggest figures in the modernist movement of the 20th century. And it's really difficult for me to choose one of her books that impacted me because they all did in their own way. But if I had to choose, I would say that Hour of the Star, Agua Viva, and Apple in the Dark absolutely changed me the most or affected me the most. And if we're going to talk about my father, Fernando Pessoa, whom I adore, and I've been prepping a video on him all about Fernando Pessoa, so watch out for that. He is originally from Portugal, and I came across him when I was quite young, and he was for me, he was out of this world simply because of how he used words. He was really the person that made me fall in love with words, and I cannot thank him enough for that. He made me want to be a writer. So I'm really just thankful that I came across him, and I need to recommend him to whomever is listening. Like, if you're a person, you benefit from reading Fernando Pessoa because he will make you see things in ways that you never thought possible. And yeah, that's just one of his talents. Other than that, he's got this affinity with words. They're his friends, and he knows how to play them like an orchestra. He is a maestro in that way. Now, if we were to move on from my parents to my grandparents, I already mentioned one of them, which is my Russian grandfather, Tolstoy, who I read this year. He's the newest one on this list in terms of when I came across him. But he changed my worldview, he changed my perception, and he did all of that in his masterpiece, War and Peace. So that book changed my perspective on how we perceive history and important events. So I think that he deserves to be on this list for that reason. Can you see the necklace I'm wearing today? Because we're talking about family, I thought it was suitable for the occasion. Okay, so now we move on to my grandmother, who is not really well known outside of Brazil, but she impacted me so much when I was a child, and I will never forget her words and her writing and her wisdom, really. I'm talking about Cora Coralina, who's a Brazilian poet that I came across when I was still a child. And like I said, she still lives in my heart. And so does her wisdom. So my other grandparents on my other side are Dante. So if you've watched my video on how Italian was created by poets, specifically Alighieri, Dante, and Francesco Petrarca, then you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, go check that out because it'll blow your mind like it did to me. So, without further ado, let's talk about my other grandmother, Agatha Christie. Now, I came across Agatha for the first time when I was a child. Again, we're still talking about before I was 10. And I fell in love with Miss Marple and Hercule Poirot and, her standalones. I read all of them. I binged on them. I remember spending my school holidays at home reading Agatha Christie because I was just so addicted to her mystery. They work very well and they still do. They still hit the notes for me. So if we move on a little further on the family branch, we have to talk about my exotic uncle, Machado de Assis. Now, Machado de Assis is somebody I spoke about briefly on the channel. If you've been here for a minute, maybe you've heard of him. But he is a towering figure when it comes to Brazilian literature. He was groundbreaking in many ways. And he really was South America's response to Charles Dickens in many ways. Not just Charles Dickens, but the whole memoir movement that was happening in Europe at the time. So he wrote the posthumous memoirs of Brás Cubas, and that's really when he became famous. And that was the first book that I came across. First book of his that I came across. And I think after that, I just realized that you can have so much fun with writing. Not everything needs to be serious. And in fact, it probably shouldn't because, we're talking about life on this little blue planet. Why take it so seriously? It's not like you're going to get out of it alive. So he taught me irony and he taught me wit and he taught me that it is what it is. Let's laugh about it. What are you going to do? Would you rather laugh or would you rather cry? So yeah, he's a realist with a sense of humor. And another one of my aunties that I want to talk about is Mary Shelley. She is very much future-oriented. She was also groundbreaking in her own way. And I think that she made an impact in me as a reader because it was the first time that was it my first sci-fi? I think it was my first sci-fi, mine and everybody else's. But yeah, so Mary Shelley absolutely deserves to be on this list. She made me fall in love with that genre. And I think that is a very forward-looking genre. And unlike dystopia, which paints a scary picture of the future, I think sci-fi can play with futuristic themes and still be thought-provoking, but not so nihilistic. Another auntie of mine that I want to mention is Ursula K. Le Guin and George Orwell. So they are auntie and uncles who introduced me to different genres and showed me how writing can be diverse. So George Orwell with his allegories, and Ursula K. Le Guin with her short stories primarily, because that's how I came across her initially, was with her short stories. So, and afterwards, fantasy and mythology, because one thing about Le Guin is she's written everything. I recently read her book called Lavinia, which is a Roman mythology book based off the Aeneid. So, super versatile. I think she had so much fun switching genres, and she still kept her voice. Like, you can still see that you're reading an Ursula Le Guin book. So I think that was really amazing, and she deserves to be part of my literary family. Now we have to talk about my first boyfriend. And I talk about him being my first boyfriend because I kind of like fell out of love with him after a while. And I think I've just moved on in general. So he kind of stayed in the past, but he was very impactful at the time. I'm talking about Camus. And yeah, I think both of his very famous novels impacted me in different ways. The Stranger as well as The Myth of Sisyphus. So it made me hang out with nihilists a lot. I started reading a lot of nihilistic literature, Dostoevsky, Nietzsche, after him. And I like to think of myself as a recovering nihilist nowadays. I like to be, I kind of distanced myself from that movement a little bit because it was just making me too sad, you know? So another boyfriend of mine that I had a phase with was Bernard Cornwell. Now, he writes fantasy and historical fiction, and even his historical fiction still feels like fantasy. And I had like a whole year of just Bernard Cornwell. I read all of his series, and I really loved it. I fell in love with Northern mythology because of him. And I learned a lot about Anglo-Saxon history because of him. So that was really cool. I can't say that I probably will go back there because this is just not one of those books that you reread, really. Or maybe it is. Who knows? You know, let's not make any promises here that we're not going to keep. Maybe one day I will. But, you know, for now, we're going to class him as a phase that I had. My current best friend is Marie Benedict. She writes historical fiction, and she mostly writes about female figures that didn't get the praise they deserved. So historical figures that contributed a lot, but didn't get their laurels. And I support that mission. I've read 3 of her books this year. I discovered her this year, and I thoroughly recommend. I read Lady Clementine Churchill. I read The Only Woman in the Room. I'm looking at them. And I read just last weekend, I read her Hidden Genius, which is about Dr. Rosalind Franklin, who helped map DNA and RNA as we know it today. So a scientist. Yay, women in STEM. Let's support that, right? Now, we're moving on from my family and my friends, and we're going to really important literary figures that I see as mentors or teachers. So I want to talk about 2 poets, Maya Angelou and Emily Dickinson, because even though they feel like my besties and they feel like friends, I feel like they belong to the teacher category because of just, you know, how much they've taught me about life and about language and poetry and feelings and emotions and how to be human, really. So Maya Angelou and Emily Dickinson, I live by these women, like these women's words. And I will recommend them to whomever I come across forever for the rest of my life. I have no question about it. The last person I want to talk about is another teacher of mine, which is Charlotte Bronte. I think Charlotte Bronte, with her love for education, broke so many ceilings for women in literature, and I'm really thankful for that. Of course, her sisters are also amazing, but I'm going to talk about Charlotte Bronte here because I think she was the first one to just start and show the way. So yeah, I for this tag, I'd like to tag everybody I know, but I did that last time, so I'm gonna take it easy this time, and I'm only gonna tag a few people who I think really should do this tag. One of them is Albert from Albert the Conjugator, because he's learning Italian, and this tag came from from the Italian booktube from the Italian corner of BookTube, and I think that he should see the original creators of this tag. I'm putting everybody in the link in the description box. So the original creators, as well as Dave from Polyglot Reading, who tagged me. So I'm tagging Albert and I'm tagging Eleanor because I know they love language and linguistics, and I think that I want to see them do this tag. So lastly, I would like to make an announcement. Dun, 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 dun. I'm kidding. It's not that big of an announcement. It's just something really cool that my friend from the Active Mind started. It's an initiative that hopefully we will keep up tradition, not just this year, but next year as well. We'll keep up tradition. And it is Poetober. Poetober is basically reading Edgar Allan Poe in October, okay? Because it's Halloween season. And can you think of anything more Halloween than Edgar Allan Poe? Okay, maybe like the Victorian Gothic situation over there. But I want to talk about his poetry because, as you all know, I love poetry, and I will be reading the complete collection of Edgar Allan Poe for Poetober this year. So the prompts are his poetry, his short stories, and his books. Anything by Edgar Allan Poe is game. Take part in it if you feel like it. Just remember to put the hashtag Poetober, and I'll go check out your video. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for staying until the end. And if you haven't yet, please don't forget to like and subscribe so that other people who have the same taste as you can see this video. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. And happy Poetober. Bye.